Today. Darren Bailey, welcome back. Congratulations on your victory. The next battle starts now.
Well, thank you so much, Annie, and I want to thank your entire listening area for just the amazing support and turnout that they showed. We knew it was going to be downstate Illinois that was going to pull us through the primary, and just God bless you guys, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah, they're a strong show of support for you across the state. There are multiple people in the field that you faced off, and sometimes, it comes up that you don't get a majority of the voters, but you certainly come through with the win. You took over 50% of, at least in the last I checked, across the state. And I saw some people on Twitter talking about downstate versus not. And I put up a picture of the map. There is a corner in Cook County where Ted Dabrowski did take the majority there, but you're as north gets in the support that you were able to pull out of the electorate yesterday.
Well, that is, and let's not forget that, one of the radio talk show hosts was his basically campaign manager up there. So they were hearing from him every day and probably wondering why they weren't hearing from me because I wasn't invited. But that's okay. We knew that's how that would work. That's how it worked 4 years ago. And we are actually heading into the city of Chicago today. We just finished an amazing unity a breakfast. Republicans all across the state were there. It was filled to capacity. They had to add tables. Rick Heidner, one of the co-competitors, he was there. The other two were not. But it was an amazing program as we worked to, I admitted, I told the people, I said, hey, I've been too divisive in the past. And right now, today, this must stop. We have to work together. We have to work in unison to defeat JB Pritzker and just, Republicans. We've got the answers. We're business people, but also we've got to welcome independents. We've got to welcome Democrats who know that their party is left them behind. So we've got work to do. I've got work to do in Chicago, and Illinois is hurting. It's hurting much worse than it was 4 years ago. I'm a different person than I was 4 years ago. Illinois is under a lot more hardship than it was 4 years ago. So we have the perfect climate. We're going to put the work in, and we're going to earn the trust of the people up here in Chicago. And I believe that's going to be a recipe for a change in November.
Darren Bailey speaking with us, the victor last night in the Illinois primary, winning the Republican nomination for governor. He will face off against JB Pritzker for that governorship come November. So you have a lot of work to do. It's good to hear that is your motivation. You know that there is an effort that needs to be put forth, and you're talking about going to Chicago. What are you gonna do this time around to make it different than last time around? You saying you're going to Chicago makes me think that you feel as though that's the place where you can gain the most traction.
So, right, the rest of the state's going to be hearing my message. They know who I am. All over the state, our number one focus is voter turnout. I mean, let's face it. 2022, it would not, regardless of what you've been sold or what you've been told, it would not have mattered who the candidate was. The apathy in the Republican Party set in, and unfortunately, 43% of all registered voters were all that showed up to vote. JB Pritzker had spent $35 million in his mail-in balloting campaign, and he had the bottom third packed. I mean, it was game over before it started.
Yeah.
And so Republicans, we know that now. We know that we have to get out and reinvigorate people, help them understand why they must vote. Again, I think people get it more today than they did 4 years ago because, especially up here in these northern counties, they're financially pinched much more than their property taxes have went up at a quicker rate the last 3 years than ours have. So showing up, letting them know that, hey, I've got the experience in the state house. I know how this is done. I know what the problem was. I've sat and I've watched it. I've fought it. I've spoke against it for 4 years. Lower property taxes. We can do this. We can begin to implement changes in the governor's office to make this happen. Working on utility costs. I mean, they should have. JB Pritzker and the General Assembly should have been working on this. You call a special assembly in order, and you give them the task of focusing on this. And again, JB Pritzker has to own these high utility costs that we're facing, and just overall cost in general. And safer streets. I mean, up here in Chicago, there's a vacancy of 1,600 police officers, and many 911 calls don't even go answered. I mean, it's unreal. And our schools are struggling all across the state, and they're struggling because of state mandates. JB Pritzker wants to spend $2.5 billion to give illegals free housing, free health care, and free food. Well, see, that comes out of the budget. And then when the fiscal year's up in June, all he has to do is say, "Whoop, schools and townships, I'm sorry, but I don't have enough money to give you your full allotted amount." That forces them to the table to increase levies and raise property taxes. So the schools, even though we think we're frustrated at sometimes what our schools can and cannot do, but in Chicago it is much different, and people are fed up. They feel trapped. I heard you talking right before I came on about the money that for our children and for our education budget, the $8 billion that's available. I'd like to remind people that JB Pritzker hates President Trump more than he loves Illinois, because it is up to him. All he's got to do is work with the White House, and that money's ours. But let's also not forget the Invest in Kids Act that JB Pritzker failed to let get through, and that's a simple act that allows businesses and people to write donations, tax deferred donations, and to schools, especially it's all over the state. But some of that money goes to parochial schools, but much of that money goes to failing schools up here in Chicago, where parents can pull their children out and send them to alternative forms of education. And they tried for 3 years to get that bill at sunset in 22, and he made sure that it did not pass, because if it doesn't pass, then that just simply gives our teachers unions more authority and more power to prioritize their desires in school instead of our students.
We're speaking with Darren Bailey, the nominee for the Republican Party to challenge JB Pritzker in November. You're talking a lot about the things that JB Pritzker won't do. And we as Illinois residents, we feel it. It's burdensome. It is a head scratcher quite often as to why we would allow ourselves to stay in the state and endure it. Many people haven't. I'm thinking about that moment in the State of the Union when the president said that the priority of the government should be the American citizen over the illegal immigrant. And the Democrats would not participate in an agreement on that statement. We know from what you're talking about right now some of the things that JB Pritzker is against or won't see through. What is JB Pritzker's purpose and priority in the state of Illinois as the governor?
Well, his purpose and priority is, first of all, turning Illinois into a socialist a roadmap, a socialist state, so that he can run for president in 28 and show California, Colorado, New Jersey, and New York exactly what he's done. And if we allow that to happen, if we the voters allow that to happen, then this constitutional republic, we're in trouble. So that is what we are fighting to protect. That is the reason that this time around that Illinois is on the national radar. Illinois was not on the national radar 4 years ago. Cindy and I showed up in Aspen, Colorado to the Republican Governors Association, and I'm telling you, we felt like a rock star for about 15 minutes, because everyone there knew who we were. They knew that we took a six-way race with 57% of the vote, and then came that hard word, but we're going to focus on the swing states, and we'll come back to California and Illinois later, and later was 10 years away. And Annie, I'm telling you, everything is different today. And by the grace of God, I'm a changed person because of the 4 years that I've had. 7 months ago, this was not on the radar to run, but because of just life and living and thinking and contemplating, because of the tragedy, but just sitting home for literally almost 3 months with family and just soaking all this in, it made me, it allowed me to reevaluate and think, wow, this is, I'd already announced by then, but just realizing that, wow, things have to be different. They can be different, and they will be different. And when we show up and start sharing this with our friends in Chicago, they're going to wake up and realize that they need to cast their vote and or change their vote on November 3rd.
Darren, listening to you talk, I hear the passion in your voice. I've worked with you for years, and you've always been passionate about Illinois as your home. You've fought many different battles. You've served in the House. You've served in the Senate. You've run for governor before. You seem as though you've got a little bit, you've referred yourself, I think, as a changed man. How does that manifest itself in this election in a way that transcribes into more votes than JB Pritzker is going to get?
Well, I've got the work ethic, and
Did we lose him? He's still here.
like when Cindy and I get in an argument, I apologize. I said, "Hey, listen, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I didn't realize, Chicago loved that. I was trying to say that for a particular reason to help Chicago, but you're proud of your city, so I get it. So let's back up, and we know words hurt, and I understand that. I just spoke at the Republican Unity Breakfast where, I said, listen, I have been part of the divide before, and I'm sorry about that, but we can no longer do that. We've got to start working together. This primary is behind us, and when we leave this room today, we have to all be on the same page. No more infighting. We just will not tolerate that. And much like how I probably parented my kids, so I've got to live that by example as well. So we're going to do everything that we can to make the Republican Party stronger. And then something else that I probably had problems with in the past is welcoming the people that don't think like me. So that's got to change. Welcoming, like I said, independents and Democrats who feel like their party's left them behind. So.
Yeah, it's so refreshing to hear you say, Darren, and I think it's what a lot of people are looking to you now that I think there's a strong contingent of people who cannot stomach a vote for JB Pritzker again and may just not show up to vote. That's going to go your way as well. If there is a lack of inspiration to show up and cast a ballot for a third term of JB Pritzker here in the state of Illinois. But listening to you talk about Big Tent is inspiring, and I think it's what this party needs going forward. You and your running mate, Aaron Del Mar, who is from the Chicagoland area, I believe that's going to be a strong suit that you're bringing into this election as well. I had a conversation earlier with Ted Dabrowski. He was very conciliatory, still very passionate, of course, about the future of Illinois, as all of us are. You said you were able to have a unifying, I think it was breakfast earlier today with one of the candidates, and he said he's willing to do what he can to help support you getting across the finish line. Are you going to be able to use Ted Dabrowski's influence that he has potentially had in the northeast part of our state in order to get across the finish line?
Absolutely. So, Annie, I have not heard from him yet, so I'm looking forward to hearing from him. So, yes, he's a genius, and like they said, I've taken a lot of his messaging over the years, and I'm the one that ran with it and did something with it. So, I look forward to having his expertise and his geniusness of crunching these numbers. That's what he's good at, and he will be a vital part. The sheriff. Haven't heard from him yet either, but he will be a vital part of. He's passionate about law enforcement, and that's one of our pillars. So, and then Mr. Heidner, he was at the breakfast, so I was able to talk to him. He actually approached me, called me last night. We had an excellent conversation, and I know for a fact that he is interested in being involved. So, no, absolutely, the door is open. The seat is at the table, and I expect their help and support, and probably their involvement in the administration.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I love hearing that. Ted told me that he did make a contact last night, and you guys were not able to connect. So hopefully that will happen here very soon. It sounds like you're very receptive to that conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
And he was eager to throw his support, whatever he can do to help, because we all have to come together. And Darren, I got to tell you, I texted you this morning and I wanted you to know anything I can do to help you here on the Annie Frey Show. You got the southern part of the state to show up for you in the primary, and we're going to show up for you again in the general. And I'm always here to do what I can to get Illinois back to a place of common sense. I'd like to see that in my lifetime, Darren, and you are our hope.
Thank you so much. The past is behind us, and the future is what we have to work together to make and unite, and I believe that we can do that. So thank you so much.
All right. Darren Bailey, congratulations on your win. JB Pritzker, next. Go get him.
God bless. Thank you.
You as well. God bless you. Darren Bailey, the nominee.